Well, welcome everyone, and thanks so much for dropping into the pre-session information video for the virtual Chill Pill. So these sessions will include a range of activities aimed at supporting you to relax. May include, but not be limited to, breathing techniques. Breathing is something we take with us wherever we go and whatever we do, and it's really closely linked to almost all of our day-to-day activities. So as an example, trying to eat or drink without regulating your breathing can result in you choking. All of our emotional expressions happen on the breath. Things like laughing and crying require the breath to transfer that expression outward. We're doing a lot of work on focusing our attention to our breath or to different parts of our body for that coordination of mind and body. You might find me introducing some gentle movements and exercises just to help prepare for some lovely deep breathing or to try and enhance the effects of breathing as well. We may use some self-massage and self-touch in order to provide comfort to ourselves and actually to increase the potential for relaxation with some of the techniques. We may use sound in the form of background music or even using our body to produce sounds, usually towards vibrating certain areas of our body or simply just to enjoy the process of expressing ourselves. We may also use mantras or words that we insert as affirmations or thoughts in order to guide our intention. And there may be the opportunity for self-reflection throughout the whole session and also after as well. Sometimes when we look back on what we noticed, what came up for us, how we responded to certain things, it can be a really useful tool to further our learning about ourselves. So for me, it's really important that there's a sense of safety in doing these activities. It can be a really vulnerable experience to fully relax, and especially to do that with other people, even though it's virtually, with other people in our space. I think we have a wonderful ability to cope as humans with all sorts of stimuli that we face day to day. And we seem to face a lot of those in the way we live our life at the moment with the Western lifestyle. So it's not uncommon to face a lot of micro stresses, one on top of the other, that make it difficult to fully discharge and relax from those. So we find ourselves bottling things up and compartmentalizing them and dissociating from them in order to move forwards. And when we fully relax, there's a risk that sometimes some of those little packages and boxes we've created can open up. That can be painful. In some cases, it can leave people feeling re-traumatized and just generally a vulnerable thing to do. So I'm trying to make that as safe an experience for you as possible by, I guess, putting a few ground rules in place. So one of those is if you do happen to notice or in a discussion, you hear about somebody having a profound reaction or even a minor reaction to something, it's really important that those things stay within the group unless you're explicitly invited to talk about that. In fact, if you keep that to yourself, unless you're explicitly invited by the person who had the reaction to discuss it, I think that's best. That way we all move forward knowing that we feel safe and secure with whatever happened to us as a part of our growth and development and isn't going to be shared to those who don't need to know about it. And the other thing is having a safety plan for yourself. If you do happen to find yourself dealing with some strong emotions or feelings, having some ways to step out of that to protect yourself a little bit is really, I think, really important. So I'm going to make some suggestions for you here. Number one is using a visualization technique where you can look at visualizing even before you go into a session. So it's all solid and you've got that locked away as something you can use. Visualization, a place or a person that you've always found as a go-to, as a safe place. Somewhere where you holidayed as a kid or somebody's house that was always safe and welcoming, or even a particular person that you always could go to for comfort. and building up a visualization around them. So if things build up for you in session, you can bring your thought process out of that and go to your virtual safe place. If you don't have any of those, there are certain ways you can perhaps comfort yourself physically that may be useful for you to explore. I know myself, if really stressful things happens, one of the natural reactions for me is to put my head in my hands. And your forehead has a couple of these little bumps here that we tend to go to, and that can be a real sense of comfort for people. So if you're struggling with something coming up for yourself, bring your focus inwards to that point and just enjoy that feeling of security. You could also try forehead and heart, or heart and tummy. Or you can give yourself a big hug. You can feel your heart more on the left-hand side of your body. So you might go for under. So you're touching the left-hand side of your body, and over with the right. You might like to pop yourself in fetal position. So do some work ahead of time to give yourself some safety mechanisms you can go to if you become overwhelmed with some of that awareness or relaxation that's going to be happening in the class. I will be available to you if you join the class and you need to follow up and I guess seek a little bit of support. I'm inviting you into the class, so I'm going to make myself available to provide some ongoing support after the class, even if it's just a general debrief and some suggestions about how you might move through certain things that you've, I guess, brought to the forefront by relaxing. And the next phase is our contraindications. It's also important to keep ourselves physically safe. So we're going to go through a list of considerations now. Some of these things might need either for you to not do a particular activity, and some of them might just need some, I guess, modifications in order to make them work for you. So if you've got serious cardiovascular or respiratory conditions, please let me know. And in fact, it's probably important to discuss with your GP that the kind of activities you're going to be doing here, which could involve things like gentle hyperventilations or breath holding techniques, and seek guidance from them. I'm happy to provide some superficial advice, but ultimately, if you've got a serious health condition, it's a great idea to check in with your doctor first and make sure that your planned activities are safe to go ahead with. So with serious cardiovascular or respiratory conditions, we might need to modify some breath holds. Any deep breathing, we might also look to dial that back a little bit depending on the nature of it. The same with any complex medical condition. I'm not a doctor, so I'm not always going to be qualified to guide you as far as whether something's safe or not. So if it's a serious medical complication, again, go and see your doctor and seek clearance to participate in a meditation and breathwork class. If you have current risk of seizures, sometimes that over-breathing can potentially be a trigger. The same would be if you're at current risk of having any psychosis. So perhaps there we just go for some lovely rhythmic breathing in place of over-breathing and breath holding in those work phases that will sometimes come up in a class. Pregnancy, we probably don't want to do a lot of abdominal manipulations while we're breathing there, or breath holding again may be an issue. So if you're pregnant, privately let me know, and maybe we can come up with some solutions as well to let you participate, but to make sure that's as safe as we can. Some of the techniques, again, including positioning and breath holding, may increase pressure within the body. So people with eye issues like retinal detachment and glaucoma might well avoid certain activities. So again, let me know so I can guide you, or go and see your GP and ask for advice there. And blood pressure issues. Some of the techniques have been well researched through yogic traditions, and there are some suggestions about some activities that it's best not to do if you have low or high blood pressure. So I'll try and identify those as much as possible when we do them, And again, we might just be modifying those techniques, doing them less intensively, or replacing them with other activities if we have any issues with blood pressure. And we might be able to make some suggestions that work for you rather than against you in that space. The classes need to be a place of compassion. So I don't want you to get hung up on whether you're doing something right or wrong, or whether you are keeping up with some of the counting activities in some of the sessions. I think just go with the vibe and know that you're doing something positive for yourself if you're doing it responsibly, as we've just discussed with contraindications. And be really patient with yourself. Paul Lehrer, who's an eminent researcher in stress physiology, has done loads of research on different styles of relaxation. And he's found even just to modify the amount of stimulus we take in, so you can focus more deeply in, meditation and mindfulness activities, to get to a point where you have a notable change in your ability to focus can take 4 to 6 weeks of regular practice. So if your mind's wandering, or you're losing count, or you're not sure if you're doing something right, it's no biggie. It's all good. Just go with it. Try and get back on with the vibe of the thing. Start again on the next breath. Just take it easy and think positive thoughts about what you're doing. It's important we keep that little inward smile going too. It can be stressful sometimes, which is the last thing we want in a relaxation session if you're not sure what you're doing. So I really mean it, in that it's all good. Relax, just do your best to go with the flow, and just keep that little inward smile going on. Give yourself a pat on the back before and after. It's really lovely to take some time out for ourselves in what's generally a really busy place for people, just to inhabit, Western society these days. So that little bit of time to be in the now, to be present with ourselves, can be just so wonderful and supportive and nurturing of ourselves. So acknowledge it, be grateful to yourself for giving yourself the opportunity. And just to reinforce, it's all good. Relax and just go with the flow as much as you can. Don't sweat the small stuff. It's also important that we come in with a bit of focus. When we're directing our mind to certain places, it requires you to have a commitment to the process. It requires you to do a little bit of work, even though we're trying to keep it relaxed, even though we're trying to keep it all good. So do expect to do a little bit of work and to actually focus a little bit while we're doing the sessions, but don't be too hard on yourself if that focus wanders. There's no point doing an activity if you're not going to give yourself an opportunity to get some positive things out of it. So give yourself the chance by committing to the sessions once you sign up. And just a little talk on finishing up each session. Sometimes, things will happen. We're in a virtual environment, so if your internet drops out, if you decide to hang on to an activity longer than the session, if you decide you need to finish up earlier, it can be nice to have a process to come out of the session. Obviously, we have a process going in where we'll settle into ourselves, but if you get stuck on your own when you have to come out of it, it's just nice to have some ideas. These aren't rules, just some suggestions. So as you're trying to reorient yourself to where you are and what you're about, you can start by just wriggling your extremities and just noticing how they feel. You can move that into more general body movements. If you want, you can go into a gentle big stretch and yawn, which is a really lovely way to sort of signify the end of something. You can rub your hands together to create a bit of heat, which can be really comforting when you place them over your forehead, or on your forehead and heart, or as we discussed before in the safety planning, on your heart and tummy. You might give yourself a little bit of gratitude. Prayer hands on your forehead or in front of your heart, just to give yourself that little congratulations for taking some time out for yourself. And maybe just sit and reflect on how you feel, and do that in a few minutes' time as well, because things can change across that few minutes after you finish up a session. And if you feel good, if you feel relaxed, If you've got to get up and do some things afterwards, just take the time to take that feeling with you. When you actually physically get up, if you're in a lying position, remember things are pretty relaxed there. And if you get up quickly, you might get the woozies with that drop in blood pressure. So do take the time, maybe to roll onto one side, catch your breath, sit, catch your breath, and make sure that you're all nice and stable before you get up and walk, so we don't have any issues with fainting or anything along those lines. Some of the sessions I might invite some discussion, or if you wish to request that, that's okay as well. So that could be around the general vibe of the session, what you liked, what you didn't like. It could be talking about how you feel at the end. It could be talking about what you experienced during a session, if you feel like you want to do that. And it could be an opportunity for us to think about, a reflection journal after the fact, or bringing stuff from past sessions forward if they come up, afterwards, and you feel that's worthy of discussion. But again, just really importantly, if you're part of a discussion about anybody else's experience, please, that's for you. And if you don't think that you can keep that to yourself, maybe opt out of those discussions. All right, and of course, there's my details if you need them for, for a debrief, or if you need them to book another session, or if you need them for any other positive purpose, feel free to check in. And again, thank you very much for having a little watch of this video. It does go on a bit, but I think it's really important that we cover that information, that so everybody feels safe, happy, and secure. So I'll see you in the next virtual chill pill.